Several of y'all have heard me give this before. Most of y'all know this is my favorite account in the Bible. And but about 2 weeks ago, the Lord showed me something in a way that I've never really noticed something before in it. And it really stuck out to me, and I share it with y'all this evening. Book of Samuel chapter 17, beginning in verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shaka, and which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shaka and Azekah and Ephes-Adim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and by the valley of Eli, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. There went out a champion out of the camp, the Philistine, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried in array, Am not I a Philistine, and ye the servants of Saul? Choose you a man for whom you will let come down to me. And if he be able to fight me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then ye shall be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all the Israel heard those words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now, whenever I give it, I love this account, and I love to get a very mental picture of this. I just, to see the significance of it, and just how the Lord worked and everything in it. And we see here that what we've read is they've got a problem. The Israelites have got a problem, and it's a giant of a problem. Goliath, they say Goliath, and what I've read is he's right around 9.5 feet tall, somewhere around that. And I just looked up what you think a man would weigh, around 8 foot. Figured Goliath be around 6 pounds. Mighty big fella. And it said his helmet, around 15 pounds. And that helmet that he had come down on his head, tucked around the back of his neck. The only thing you could see was this right here on his face. They're around 15 pounds. They said the coat of mail that he had was around 150 pounds. His spear was like a weaver's beam, and they said that was around 25 foot tall. And can you imagine somebody being able to tote that thing around? Spear head was about 20 to 25 pounds. Shield, probably around 60 pounds. That's a total of 850 pounds, give or take. That's not counting what he had on his arms and down his legs. In total, and weighed around 850 pounds. What this man come out. What a sight he must have been. They said he was covered from head to toe, and I believe he was decked out. I mean, I think he was something to see. And here we see that he comes out and looks out across the valley over to the Israelites and said, Listen here. I'll come down and fight for our army. Y'all send one of y'all's fellas down to fight for me, for y'all. And if he's able to lick me, we're y'all's servants. If I can beat him, we'll be y'all's servants. But here we see the problem. Israel hears this man, sees this man, and it says they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Dismayed and greatly afraid. All they've done is just listen to the man. They've seen the man. They've not went out and actually tackled the man. How many times have we done that? Well, Lord, I can't do that. Well, how do you know No, you can't. You ain't went out and tried it yet. You're just looking at the problem through your eyes. What do you think that looks like through God's eyes? Not a thing. Not a thing. It's nothing to God. Nothing is a problem in our life until we forget God, and then it becomes a problem. That's what we see the Israelites. They had forgotten who was on their side. They forgot who God was and who could take care of them. That's why they were afraid. Let's continue reading. Verse 12. Now David was a son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and had 8 sons. The man that went among them for an old man in the days of Saul. And 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. The names of these 3 sons that went to the battle were Elab, the firstborn, and next unto him Benadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. The Philistine drew near morning and evening, presented himself 40 days. Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of loaf, this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. And carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their thousands, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now we're in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. David rose up in the early morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went, and Jesse had commanded him, and he came into the trench, and the host was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel, the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with, and behold, there came out the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same word. That gives me goosebumps how the Lord had him point that out. It doesn't say the Philistine came out and said something new. It doesn't say he tried a new approach to him. It said the same exact words, but David heard them this time. That means that this man went out for 40 days and did this morning and evening. They listened to this 80 times. 80 times the Israelites heard them defy them. But it only took one time for David to hear something and stir him up. Why? David hadn't forgotten his God. David hadn't forgotten his God, and it stirred him up. Put a burr under his saddle. How many times have we heard somebody putting our God down, or problems coming facing us? And we get afraid and tuck tail and run the other way. God's still in control. We serve a promise-keeping God, brothers and sisters. I can make a promise to you all day long. I'll try to keep it. But in the end, there's a good chance I might not be able to. That's not so with God. He makes a promise. He keeps it. We just sung Standing on the Promises. We sing it, but do we mean it? Are we standing on them tonight? I'm going to go out for you. I'm your servant. I'll do what you tell me. Again, reading verse 24. His armor again, saying the whole same thing again. David heard them, and verse 24 says, And all the men of Israel went, and all the man fled from him and were so afraid. I get a picture of David out there talking, oh, yeah, stuff, come right from my daddy. Here old Goliath starts talking, and boy, they just looks around. What in the world? Everybody's gone. I said, they're so afraid. Fled from him. I believe David just probably standing out there. What in the world's going on? Lord, come back? No, I didn't say that. But verse 25, and the man said, Have you seen the man that has come up? Do you seen this guy? Surely defy Israel as he come up, and it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For whom is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the army? So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Elab, his eldest brother, heard him when he spake unto the men, and Elab's anger was kindled against him, against David, and he said, Why comest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? And I know thy pride and thy naughtiness of thine heart, for thou might see it's a battle. Oh, his brother is thinking, he just come down here to mock us. And, you've all seen them people. Why, if I get a hold of them, I heard my mom say it before, I'd like them to get my way one time. I'd chew them out one day and up, down the other, and I'd wring their necks. That's what he thought he was doing, just blowing smoke. He thought he was just fussing, just trying to act like he was somebody. No, it's much more than that. It's much more than that. In verse 29 says, And David said, What have I now done? And there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another and spake the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul and sent him for him. David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took the lamb out of the flock. And when I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth, and when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he had defied the armies of the living God. David said, Moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear. He will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. He said, Listen here, king. He said, You think I'm too young, but listen here. I was out taking care of my daddy's sheep. A lion rose up out against it, grabbed that sheep, took off with it. I chased him down. I hit him over the head, grabbed that sheep, said, You can't have it. That's my daddy's. I'm taking it back. And I said, I killed him. I did the same thing with the bear. And this old mountain of mice ain't going to be nothing else. That God's going to take care of me just like he took care of the other ones. You tell me next time you get a bill, you get something you think's too much and too high. You remember who took you through the last problem you had. We've all had lions. We've all had bears come our way, but God's seen them through us, ain't he? He's seen it through it. We've seen him. He's seen it through us. Well, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. He's seen us through it. Yeah, that's it. We're going to stick with that one. But there might come a time in our life when something comes a little bit bigger than a lion and a bear, and it's called Goliath. But if he can take you through that, he can take you through a Goliath. David said, Listen, king. And I like verse 37. Kind of like David saying, Listen, I got a little more to say. He said, The Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion, out of the paw of the bear. He will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. It almost makes me wonder, what kind of shape you think the Israelites were in? That here it was, their baller saying, David, do you not see this guy? He's been training since he was a child. You're a child. You ain't had nothing. All you've been doing is watching your sheep. Yeah, but you know what? All David had, all them days, sheep, time, and God. He had time. Watched after. He had time for God. And I don't believe David wasted a minute with it. I believe that's why he could come up here and it struck him so hard. There to find the armies of the living God. It took David to his very core. How can we let this man talk about our God like this? A true servant's heart is right there talking. It should shake us to our very core if we ain't going out about. You look back at verse 14. It said, and David was the youngest, and the three eldest followed Saul. He was the youngest out of the brothers. So many times, if I only had this, I could serve the Lord so much better. I wish I had this. And there was three brothers. They'd been trained and taught, probably in the art of warfare, how to use a sword, shield, spear, how to maneuver around. They used David, the youngest, with just what David had. Serving the Lord with just what you got. Are we willing to do it? Verse 17 to 38, and I'm fixing to point out. I was building up to it, but this is the part that I really want us to take notice of. Verse 38 said, and Saul armed David with his armor, and he put on a helmet of brass on his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. David girded his sword upon his armor, and he ceased to go, and for he had not proved it. David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. David put them off. David put them off. Saul said, here's what you need. I'm going to put my helmet on you. I'm going to put all my armor on you. I've got the best that's out there. Nobody's better than what I've got. Give him his sword. I'm sure it took 3 or 4 guys. I've watched it on YouTube, them putting that armor on. It took a couple of guys to put this on. And here they're putting this on him. And David looks at it, and I'm sure David probably walked around. That old sword's probably dragging the ground behind him. Can hardly move. Just says he takes it off. Why? David knew he had a job to do for God. And he knew that armor and what they put on him was doing nothing but slowing him down. He didn't want to be slowed down. He wanted to go fight for God. He wanted to serve him. What's slowing us down from serving God this morning? What I'm wanting us to think about, really. What's slowing us down? Look at ourselves. What's slowing us down from serving God this morning? How many times you said, I'm going to serve God right after this television program. I'm going to serve God. Too busy at work. We need to take it off, brothers and sisters. Take it off and serve God with what we've got, what He's given us to go with. You hear people, I can't live without my cell phone. Oh, I never could live without internet. Certainly can't live without my job. I'll tell you what we can't live without, and that's God Almighty. Work asks you to work on Sunday. You're putting something on right there. Because if they ask you to work on one Sunday and they see you'll do it again. They'll ask you to do it again. I've seen it. That'll slow you. Without a paycheck, you can't live without God. You look at Pharaoh. God hardened Pharaoh's heart against the children of Israel. Who's in control of your boss? You go out and work on a fire you, but if you don't, I'd be more afraid what God's going to do to me. God can harden Pharaoh's heart. He can harden your boss's heart. Youngins, come here. It's getting close to time for dating or anything like that. You need to be careful on what you look for. We need to be careful on what we look for. We ain't got business be dating nobody else but true Baptists. That's all there is, plain and simple. Say, well, they go to church. They're good people. They're saved. They say they're saved. Well, there's more to. You need to find out. They're truly saved. It might make you think, hey, you're a weirdo. Why are you asking me these kind of questions? Lord said we're peculiar people, ain't we? Then you're doing your job. Say, well, she says she's a Baptist. He says she's a Baptist. Well, there's a lot of Baptists out there. You need to find out what a true Baptist is. I've got 2 cousins that married a Baptist. And I'm doing quotations on that. They're both divorced right now. What that does, it might work for a little bit, but it won't work for long. One of my cousin's wives said 3 years after they married, if I'd known what you really believed, I never would have married you. Yes, you go out and get you a wheelbarrow, fill it full of what? 50 pounds, some blocks. I say a woman could probably pick up a wheelbarrow full of 50 pounds. I mean, wheelbarrow's got pivot points and all that, and you can do it pretty easy. And you're going down a straight stretch, and you're pushing. It's pretty easy, ain't it? Don't matter if it's flat. 50 pounds, it's going pretty good. You just kind of hold you right there on that. Longer you're pushing it, you start to slow down. It'll eventually wear you down. Him or her might not be satisfied. And they say, well, why don't we go try here tonight? No. You get several nights of that, you're liable to finally give in, just to give in to hear them shut up. We've got a job to do, and that is to serve God. We've got to look at ourselves. No, there's nobody in my church. That's why you go to revival services. That's why you go to other fellowship meetings. Well, what if God never gives me somebody? Well, that's up to God. But God's a promise-keeping God. He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. David knew. David saw that there was somebody standing up against God. And David knew with all his heart that he was a servant of God. And he had it. He put on this coat. He said, I can't do it with this. I've got to go out and I've got to strike this man down. I can't be slowed down. I can't be weighted down. I have to take it off. I'm thinking about Roger plowing a field. Roger, I'm sure you've been out plowing a field before and you probably had a flat tire out on a tractor out in the field. What do? You keep plowing with it? Or you change it? Well, sure, you change it. You don't change that, something's bound to happen to the tractor far worse than a flat tire. You keep running on that. Roger, you ever went out there to your tractor, seen a perfectly aired up tar? Thought, you know what? I'm going to plow this field with a flat tar today. Flat tar. There's many times something's wrong, but we go ahead and do it. I can make it. I can make this work. We need to look at ourselves tonight and see what God has us to do. Are we willing to do it? So many times we walk around these days with a coat full of worries, a coat full of fears that's weighing us down. Talk about a church body. We're too worried about what if we say this or what if we do this. We might lose some people. I was looking on Bryan Station. I sent it to a couple of people. I was looking on Bryan Station Baptist Church history. Brother Mark's been out there before to that church, and my dad, he's been out there preaching in it before. It was organized back in 1757, back before the Revolutionary War. And you can go on there and you can read their church minutes. They've got them back from 1780 all the way up to the present day. And I was reading on there, just looking through to see all that they've done and all that they said back then. And I thought it was interesting. And it says, at Bryan Station Meeting House, 3rd Saturday, May 1788. Respecting the duty of church members. to sit down and say, this is what we expect of our church, of God's church. This is going to be the body of God's church. This is what we expect. This is what God expects out of us. And this is what you have to do to be up to par, being a member. Now, respecting the duty of the church members and what it consists. First, we unanimously agree that it is the duty to search the scriptures and to take them for the man of their counsel. Secondly, that is their duty to attend church meeting for business as well as meeting for public worship. Thirdly, that is the duty to keep up with worship of God in the evening. They said, to be a member, we expect you not just to come to church Sunday and Wednesday, but we expect you to have church with your family throughout every week. Monday, all the way to Saturday, morning and evening. To have like a devotion, just a family devotion. That's what we expect. Nowadays, I just thought, man, could you imagine if we sat here as a church and demanded, said, this is what we've got to follow because God said it. We as a body, we've put too much on us to have us to look and see what God would have us to do and how He would serve us. And that line that He crossed, that said, I want you to follow this line. This is how I want my church to be. This is how I want my saved child of God to be. I want you to serve me, nobody else. He said, I am a God. I am the Lord thy God. I am a jealous God. I don't want you serving nobody but me. Why would you want to serve anybody but me? I am the Lord Jehovah. Even His very name says it all right there. I'm the sovereign, the self-sufficient, the self-existing, always the same, eternal, never changing, everything that we need, God. In His very name. You ever looked up your name and see what it means? Don't mean too much. But Jehovah means I am everything that you stand in need of. Nothing else. You will not lack with me. You go out and serve me full and wholeheartedly. You put me first and I'll take care of you. So many times. Even tonight, I got this lesson together 2 weeks ago. And on the sitting at home and my Fox News comes along on my phone and said the Dow plunged to 800 points. And said it was another red flag for another recession to come up. You know what? I started to think about invested and what all I'd stand to lose if everything was starting to get this kind of knot in my feeling. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Like God said, Derik, what are you doing? Well, you've been looking up the last 2 weeks. Who's going to be there for you? You don't need a job. You don't need money. You need me to depend on. Depend on me. I'll supply everything you need. Take off that worry and go about my business. Can you imagine if I come here tonight, tore up and worried, and let that stand in the way of giving a lesson tonight? David said, you come to me with a sword and a shield, but I come to you with the Lord. That's all He needs. He said, He's my defense, He's my offense, He's every strategy I need. He's everything I stand in need of. Look over in 40 again. Verse 40. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had even in a scrip, and a sling in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. The Philistine came on, drew near unto David, and the man bare the shield went before him. The Philistine looked about and saw David. He disdained him, for he was but a youth, a ruddy and a fair countenance. He must have looked like a pretty much, I guess you'd say, a sissy. I mean, he didn't look like he could hold his own. I mean, Goliath looks at him like, this is a joke. Verse 43, and the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest me with staves, or you come with me for a stick, going to run me off? And the Philistine cursed David by his God. The Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistines, thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, and the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. That God that you've been defying, the person you've been putting down, that's who I'm going to come to you with. Thought your man, you're Goliath. I'm sure Goliath had done this before. I really doubt Goliath had went out. This is the first time that he went out there to challenge. I'm sure he was probably considered somebody pretty fancy in their army. I'm sure he was decked out head to toe and just, he was glittering. He probably had people come out there, shining up his suit and all that. Bet he was something good looking. Verse 46, this day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. He said, I'm not doing this for Saul. I'm doing this for God. That's who I'm doing. Goliath was doing this for his own prideful nature. That's what he was looking for. David didn't care a thing about gloating. He said, I'm doing this for the God you put down. And when I'm through with you, everybody's going to know that there's a God in Israel. I believe that what he was saying was, those Philistines, they might not know him as Jehovah, but they were going to know by the end of the day that there was a God. And it was the God of Israel. Verse 47, all the assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with a sword and with a spear, for the battle is in the Lord's hand, and he will give you unto our hands. And this is when it gets good, boys. This is good stuff right here in verse 48. And it said, it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. He was sitting there watching him, and old Goliath, I believe he saw Goliath get up, start walking down that valley. I bet it was just making just a racket coming out, and old David saw him. David saw Goliath and said, all right, here we go. Boy, David took off running. And it said in verse 49, David put his hand in his bag. He was already running. He wasn't even locked and loaded yet. He took off running before he even loaded up his sling. He said he took off, and David put his hand in the bag and took thence a stone and sling and smote the Philistine in the forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead and fell upon the face of the earth. The only spot that thing could have went. I honestly believe David took that stone and he slammed, whack, took off, and that stone went right into his forehead, sunk right in. I believe God had a hold to that rock all the way till it hit Goliath. It came out of David's sling and took that old Goliath. He didn't know what happened. Could you imagine? It was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. If there was ever a morning that Goliath should have slept in, it was that day, wasn't it? Oh, David, boy, I believe he was itching. I believe he was itching to serve God. He got all that stuff off of him. He said, woo, I feel good now. I'm back and ready to go. Come on, old boy. He sees Goliath pop up, and he runs off after him. So excited, he don't even have his sling ready. He's running down that hill and grabs that and just takes off. Goliath, and I love every bit of it. And it says it come down, he fell flat on his face. I believe it was almost like God was bowing him down, face first. Oh, how amazing. How wonderful to serve a God like that, a promise-keeping God. David said, listen, King, he delivered me out of the lion, he delivered me out of the bear, and he'll deliver me out of this fella. And everybody knows there's going to be a God. Brothers, if we look at ourselves tonight and see what is really holding me back from serving God. Let we humble ourselves enough just to stop, take it off, and serve God. I don't need nothing but God. Verse 50 said, So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, took his sword and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. Here he knocks him down. Could you imagine? I can see it now. Philistines are out cheering. Everything, doing all they can, just probably excited. Here comes David out, and I'm pretty sure they probably wasn't going much on the Israelite side. This little, 15-year-old boy, say, walking out there, they're kind of, here they are, the Philistine, are probably just laughing. Look at what are they idiots? What are they doing? And here, one crack of that sling, and their champion was dead. Could you imagine the hush and the silence that had to happen on that side? To see the one that they put their trust in, the one that they had their faith in. Boy, old Goliath, he's going to take care of this. Remember when he took care of that other army? Or what about that other one? That was my favorite. He said, boy, I'm going to take you and I'm going to rip you to shreds. I'm going to throw your body up in the air and let the birds eat it, and the rest of it's going to let the wild beasts. Said, sword in his hand. I made a promise to him up there and grabbed old Goliath's sword, probably mustered all he could to get, chopped his head off. And now Israelites had to see the hand of God work. It said in verse 52, men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines unto thou that fell down by the way of Sharon, even unto Gath and unto Ekron. Children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their and brought it in, to Jerusalem. But he put it, and when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistines, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? But though king, I cannot tell. The king said, Inquire what it is. And as David returned from the slaughter, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, and with the head of the Philistine in his hand, David still holding Goliath's head, wouldn't let go of it. Saul said to him, Whose son art thou, thou man? David answered, And I am the son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite. Used something so small with what David had. Wasn't no college education there, no Bible college education. But what David had was faith in his God to know, you've seen me through it, you'll see me through this one too. It hit me so hard when I saw that, that David took it off to serve God. And I thought to myself, the things that I've got on that keeps me from serving God. So many things, if we would honestly humble ourselves and honestly look at ourselves and what's slowing me down? What could slow me down? Look into God's word and search and how he would have us to act and to live and how to serve him. I pray that each one of us take a look at ourselves tonight and examine ourselves and, Lord, is this right or is this wrong? Is it slowing me down from serving you, Lord? Help me to serve you better. Brother Reese.